Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Hope y'all having a great day. And with the draft just one day away, less than, or not less than 24 hours, one day away, and it's tomorrow night at 8, which I'll be live for on YouTube for both the first and second nights. If you guys could, check it out. See my live reaction to every pick. But with no further ado, let's get into my final mock draft, which unlike the one I did on Monday, it'll be what I think teams will do tomorrow night. I might have some trades in there, but it'll mostly be sticking to the order, which is current. So let's get into it. And I mean, the first overall pick, everybody knows who this is going to be. Everybody's going to start off 1-on-1, 1-for-1. It's Fernando Mendoza, easy slam run pick. And like, I got Mendoza, doesn't have the intangibles that um, other former first overall picks have had at the quarterback position. But I kind of see Mendoza kind of like in Trayvon Walker in a sense where it's like he's not he's not like built or he doesn't have the play style of a first overall pick, but in a weak draft, sometimes we see those guys where it's like they're not the greatest, but they're still really damn good and there's not much to say. The Raiders will be picking Fernando Mendoza. And the draft really starts at 2, even though I think I know who the Jets are going to take, which is Arvell Reese. I know there's been speculation about David Bailey and, what the Jets are going to do with their second first round pick, but I think Reese is going to be the pick. I just think, given how much the Jets were horrible last year on defense, they're going to want to get a game changing player. And Reese is that guy. And I've kind of compared the situation to 2022 with Trayvon Walker and Aiden Hutchinson, where Walker was more of the upside guy, where Hutchinson was the more pro ready day one guy. The Jags took Walker. I kind of feel like with Reese and then Bailey or Bain, whichever you like of the two guys. And I just think the Jets would go with the guy with the most upside, with a guy who truly can be both an on and off the ball linebacker. He's not going to do that right away, but I think Aaron Glenn can get a true chess piece for this defense. But under the Cardinals at third overall, this is where I think the draft truly starts. I think Mendoza goes 1, I think Reese goes 2. I think the Cardinals is where the draft starts. A lot of people think they could trade back, which I wouldn't hate because if like the Cowboys trade up or somebody else, like they could still win multiple good players. Sorry about that. So I do think that the Cardinals could definitely trade back. I think they could go with one of the edges. I think they could go Jeremiah Love. But I think the Cardinals go Francis Mauigoa. I think a lot of people have kind of been like, really? That's who the Cardinals are going to select? Mauigoa is a right tackle for sure. Like, there's a lot of speculation about the other tackles like Fano and other guys, whether or not they'll be true tackles or if you have to play them at guard or maybe even center, depending on what happens. But I think Arizona sticks and picks. They could trade back and maybe do what they did in 2023 when they traded back up to land Paris Johnson. I think, I think Mike LaFleur and Monty Ossenfort should really have this Cardinals team. Like, they should build this offense to be really good and then worry about the defense. I don't feel like they should go with like an edge rusher, like a Bailey or Bain. And as much as Love is a great player, I just feel like you have James Conner, you have Tyler Algier, you have Trey Benson. And yes, two of those guys are coming off major injuries, but you don't need Love. It's kind of like a luxury pick that a team would use. One of the Titans at fourth overall. I think Tennessee could also be a team to trade back. if they would rather trade back and maybe draft one of the receivers, or maybe they want to get Downs, but they don't want to take them at 4. They want to trade back. But if they stick and pick, I think they would go edge with Ruben Bain. I just think I think Bain's been overthought in the draft process. I just think a lot of people have been stuck on his measurables, like his arm length. But I think, you know, in the right system, on the right team, he can be an impact player. I mean, you can't say the guy isn't going to be good when every level of football he's been amazing. Like he was great in high school, great in college. You can't say he's not going to be good in the NFL. And I think the Titans, like I don't think they go with like Love or Tate. I think they go defense and then use their second round pick, which is early, to help out Cam Ward with a receiver. And then maybe on like day 3 they could draft a running back. I don't think they need to draft Love, and I don't think they need to draft a receiver. But now the Giants at 5th overall. I mean, if this is how the draft does pan out, I think the Giants would be happy because I think having Love still on the board, having Tate still on the board, having both Styles and Downs along with the corners on board, I think they'd go Sonny Styles here at 5th. I just think if he's available at 5th overall, which he very might could be, unless like a team like the Cowboys, who've been rumored to want to trade up, could make up that move. I feel like if Dallas is trading up, I feel like they want to get one of the edge rushers, not Styles, and we'll see. But I think the Giants want to get a true captain of the defense at linebacker. QB of the defense, a lot of people say the linebackers are. And I think Styles, like I think it's between Styles or Downs for me at 5th overall. And with a second first round pick, I think the Giants would say we can go with one of them here and then hope that the other one does fall to 10 and we can still land them. Went on the Browns at 6th. I think Cleveland, I know there's been a lot of speculation about them trading back. I think they should keep the pick. I think you should go Cardinal Tate. You keep the Columbus kid in Ohio, going from Columbus to Cleveland, and it just makes a lot of sense. Cleveland's wide receiver room is one of the worst. I mean, you have guys like Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, Isaiah Bond, but they're not that great of players. Tate can give you that elite wide receiver one. And then you have, if you get Tate, you have Harold Fannin, Quinshon Judkins. That's a nice young trio. Even Dylan Sampson as another running back. That's a nice young nucleus on this offense. And then hopefully they can figure out the quarterback position, whether it's somebody on the roster, whether it's somebody in the future, and the Browns can get back to their winning ways, which they were for a little bit. Like under Stefanski and Baker, they were really good, and the team decided to blow that up, trade for Deshaun Watson. Around the Commanders at 7, I think this is between Downs and Love, and I just think, like, I get a lot of people have been saying, why should Washington take Love? Do they really need to? But like, do they really need to help out Jaden Daniels more on the offensive side, or should they go defense? And I don't hate that argument, but like the running backs are not great. Like, Ja'Cory Carson-Merritt was a 7th round pick, and I've talked a lot about how I don't feel like teams, if they have a good enough guy, they shouldn't draft that same position. But I think in Jeremiah Love's case, you can do it if you're the Commanders because it makes this offense better. And I think because like Washington has a good offensive line. Like I don't think this would be like an Ashton Gentry situation where he's on a horrible team, and Genty is like one of the only bright spots. Like I think Love with a dual threat quarterback like Jaden Daniels. I mean, we see with Lamar and Derrick Henry that like it makes defenses adjust to who has the ball. And I think with a dual threat quarterback like Jaden Daniels, you have McLaurin on the outside, they can still draft a receiver later on if they want to. And, fill out that position. But I think Love makes a ton of sense for Washington. And that's why I think they pick. Moving on to the Saints at 8th overall. I think this is where David Bailey falls. The Saints have needed a true dominant edge rusher for a while. Cam Jordan has been amazing for years, but they've never had that secondary guy. And Cam Jordan more than likely won't be back in New Orleans for 2026. And I think this would be an amazing pick. Bailey isn't the greatest against the run, but he's not bad. But I just think, like, he's an amazing player. I just don't think he's as good as Reese or Bain. And I think the Saints would be a phenomenal team for Bailey to go to. Now the Chiefs at 9th overall could go with a receiver. I don't hate it. Could go with Caleb Downs because you lose both Brian Cook. You lose Brian Cook in the secondary, along with both Jalen Watson and Trent McDuffie, which is why I'm going to have them go corner with Mansour Delane. He's my second rated corner behind Jermon McCoy. So that's why I'm not as high on him, but I think the Chiefs, would love, you know, Delane as a player, and you lose your top two corners, you're going to have to invest into that position again. And look, we've seen it when they traded away or when they lost Charvarius Ward, they brought in Trent McDuffie along with Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson in that same draft. So like when they've moved on from star players, they usually try to invest into that position. So I think they'd go Delane, allowing them to at 29 possibly go receiver or maybe tackle or defensive line and be able to address another need. Now the Giants at 10th overall, I think they would love that Downs is still here. I think they could go receiver to help out Jackson Dart, but I personally think that the Giants want to get both styles and Downs. Like I think you trade away Dexter Lawrence to get two top 10 picks because you either want two defensive players, two offensive players, or one defensive, one offensive player. And I think they want both Downs and styles. So I think Caleb Downs goes here at 10. I don't see any way where he falls past the Giants at 10. I think he could go as high as the Giants at 5th overall. If they don't believe he's going to be there at 10 and they want to take him there. Washington could select him, the Chiefs could. I think the Giants would like getting both Styles and Downs to really complete this defense. Still need to address defensive tackle with no more Dexter Lawrence, but it would really complete this defense and would give the Giants, an elite defense they had for a couple years there in like 22 and 23 when the team was not the greatest. The defense was pretty good and kept them in games. Now the Dolphins at 11th. I think could go Spencer Fano. Address right tackle with this pick. Could go with one of the receivers. And I think with both Lemon and Tyson here, I'm going to go Tyson here. He's my number one receiver. I think the injury concerns are kind of been blown out of proportion. And I think Miami, who a new regime. They moved on from a lot of past players. You bring in Malik Willis, you gotta give him some weapons. The offensive line, I don't think it's as bad as people may say it is. It's not the greatest unit, but I think it's better than people say it is, and I think they can go receiver here if somebody like Tyson or Lemon is still available, and give Malik Willis a wide receiver one to throw to. Cowboys at 12th. I think if this is how the word plays out, they would probably hate this because the top three, like the top linebacker, top edges, top safety are all off the board. I think they would go with Jermon McCoy, filling a need at corner. McCoy, an amazing player. I mean, if you go watch his tape in 2024 when he was healthy, he was amazing. Didn't play in 2025, which could hurt his draft stock, but I think Cowboys, if the board plays that way, I think would select McCoy and would be happy getting an elite shutdown corner who they haven't had for a while. Because, Diggs and Bland were kind of more so like interception artists. Like they weren't the greatest cover corners. McCoy is and would really give this Dallas defense a much better secondary heading into 2026 than they had this past year. Rams with the 13th overall pick. Obviously, this was in the James Pierce Jr. trade, which LA is happy to have. And I think they would go with Mekhi Lemon. I think you keep the Cali kid in state with the Rams. And this is kind of a luxury pick for the um, Rams. Like, Lemon isn't a need. Like, they don't need a receiver. But with Davante Adams being in trade rumors, having 1 year left on his deal, and they're going to have to pay Puka. You're going to need impact players on the outside for whoever the quarterback is of the future post Matthew Stafford. I think Lemon would be a phenomenal pick, and it would make the Ravens kind of, but would make the Ravens pick kind of between either Sadiq or Vega Iwane. As a Ravens fan, I want them and think they will go Vega Iwane. I think you need to improve this interior offensive line. It was horrible this past year as for some reason my mouse has stopped working. There we go. But this interior offense was horrible. Like the guards were the worst in the league, and it hurt Tyler Linderbaum's play. He's now in Vegas. They'll probably draft a center on like day 2 or maybe early day 3. So I think you go guard here. Sadiq's a fun option, and I don't hate it, but I think you need to protect Lamar. You need to be able to allow this guy to make the insane plays. You can't have Lamar running for his life every single play because his offensive line is the worst in the league. And there's a reason why he was banged up this past year, and it was because he had to make more of those types of plays we're used to seeing from him because the defensive line was easily able to get after him and he couldn't escape like he usually could. Yeah. We're on to the Bucks at 15. I'm gonna with the Bucks at 15. I think edge rusher, huge need. I think it's Keldrick Falk out of Auburn. A young player who still has a lot of upside. A great run defender, which not a lot of edges coming out of college are great run defenders. Still has to work on his pass rush game, but a Bucks team that has needed edge rush play for a while. One of the reasons they kind of failed to like the reason why they kind of collapsed last year was because the injury and the defensive line just was not that great. And so teams were, staying on the field a lot longer than you would hope. Now the Jets at 16. I think if the board plays out this way, I think they would go. I think they would go Spencer Fano. I do. I think, yeah, like none of the receivers are available that I think you should go with. A lot of people say Omar Cooper, but I'm not a big fan, and I feel like the hype is being too much by the fans, not really by teams. And I think the Jets team lost both their guards in John Simpson and AVT. Fano can place into one of those guard spots and be a really good guard. He could also play tackle if like Armand Membu gets injured. So it's kind of like a security blanket for this Jets team and could really help out this offensive line. And a lot of people I think have gone Vega on it. I don't think a lot of people have gone Spencer Fano, and I think that could be a great pick. Lions at 17. I think they go Monroe Freeling. I think Freeling could go a lot higher than this. The team says he's a left tackle. That's important. We need to address that position. But no more Taylor Decker. Could move Sewell over to the left side because he played that in college. Why not keep him on the right side where he's been an all pro? Draft Monroe Freeling, who can be the Taylor Decker replacement at left tackle, and you can get back to Dan Campbell Lions football, which was between 2022 and 2024, where they were able to just like dominate on the interior on the offensive line. I think Freely makes a lot of sense. Vikings at 18. If Dylan Thieneman's there, I think they take him. No more Harrison Smith. He was released by the team, so gonna have to replace him. Yeah, Josh Metellus, who can kind of play a lot of spots. So can Thieneman, and yeah, yeah, and I think the Vikings would love that pick. It would give this defense because it would give this defense another piece. I don't think they go offense. Like their offense is mostly set. Like they addressed the offensive line last year, even though it could be improved. They have the skill position players, although running back still is a major concern along with tight end because TJ Hawkinson has not been the greatest the last couple of years post that injury. Um, and then you have Kyler Murray and McCarthy at quarterback. Like their offense is mostly set where they would go defense and hammer home another pick for Brian Flores. 19 for the Panthers. I'm gonna go Kenyon Sadiq. I know it seems like a weird pick because it's like, really, the Panthers go Sadiq, but I've said a lot of times it makes sense. And Sadiq isn't like a true tight end, but they've drafted guys in the past couple of years, Mitchell Evans, Jatavian Sanders, Tommy Tremble, who have not really worked out as tight ends. Yes, you would be adding a fourth guy on the team, but I think Sadiq would give Bryce Young another weapon. They invested in free agency, but you know, like the last couple of years, they've invested in free agency with the defense. So I feel like you could go offense. A lot of people have been saying tackle, and because Ike Ekwonu and Rasheed Walker are both free agents next year, so that they do need a left tackle for the future. But with Freeling off the board to the Lions that I had at 17, I don't think they go Proctor or Lomu or even Ian Hanachor this early. So I think Sadiq makes a lot of sense for the Panthers. Cowboys at 20th went Jermon McCoy earlier. I think I think Emmanuel McNeil Warren could be yeah. I think EMW could be the pick. Like they could maybe double up on corner, but I'm gonna go edge with Akeem Mesidor. I think it makes a ton of sense. I think Mesidor, if he is gonna be a first round pick, I think it's a team that is trying to compete now. He's gonna be 25, so he's not a guy where if you're a rebuilding team, you should draft. And I think the Cowboys, who have the offense to compete, need the defense to be much better. I think Mesidor could be an impact player right away to help out this Cowboys team. What are the Steelers at 21? I think maybe if the Steelers fall in love with like one of these guards, I could see it. Or maybe if they want to go um like Proctor, like because Broderick Jones has been a disappointment. Um the Steelers are an interesting pick because a lot of people said receiver, but you go out trade for Michael Pittman. But I am gonna go receiver with I'm gonna go Denzel Boston. I think Pittsburgh could still use another weapon. I could also see this being Ty Simpson because you know there's still no word on whether Aaron Rodgers will be back, and maybe the Steelers want to invest into the future for that quarterback position. The draft in Pittsburgh, we saw the Lions in 2024 go corner when it was in Detroit. We saw last year the Packers finally went with a receiver when the draft was in Green Bay. Maybe that trend continues with teams drafting positions they need but haven't really invested into. So maybe they do that with Ty Simpson. I think receiver still makes a lot of sense for this team, especially like you could say corner or safety to help out that secondary or mainly safety. But I think receiver can make a lot of sense for this um Steelers team. The Chargers at 22, I think could go a lot of different directions. Could go tackle, move them in guard, and I wouldn't hate that. Could also maybe go with one of these guards if you like fall in love with them. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go corner with Avion Terrell. I think LA has been fine at corner, but it's not like they don't need a need at corner. And I think a Chargers team that you lose Jesse Minter, so the defense isn't going to be as great as it was the past couple of years because Minter was able to scheme up things to have this defense playing a lot better than it truly was. So maybe they want to invest into this defense so that they have elite players at every because every I'm not sure what the word is. Anyway, moving on to the Eagles at 23. And moving on to the Eagles at 23. A lot of rumors about AJ Brown being traded post June 1. So receiver could be in play. I think tackle could be in play because Lane Johnson, how much longer is he going to be playing? I think edge is in play. Positions in play. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go Blake Miller. Lane Johnson who recently got married, so congratulations. Um, you know, is it going to be playing forever? And we saw this past year the injuries. Like Lane Johnson was banged up, and it really took a toll on this Philly offense. They weren't able to be as dominant because their backup to Lane Johnson was not, great. So I think Philly could invest into that future right tackle, knowing that, because Howie Roseman always thinks, ahead. He always thinks what position do I need to improve? And I think Blake Miller could be the pick if they choose to invest into a future right tackle. But maybe they go with like a Proctor to maybe help out with the guard situation. But on the Browns at 24, went Cardinal Tate at 6. I'm going to go Caleb Lomo here at 24. I just think the pick makes a lot of sense. Browns need a left tackle and a receiver. I think they go with both those positions. Whichever one is at 6 and whichever one is at 24 is whoever's guess. But I think it makes a ton of sense for the Browns and Lomu, who can fit in at the left tackle. They brought in Titus Howard to probably play right tackle, and then Elton Jenkins and Zion Johnson to be the guards. You know, we need a center now if they were able to pick up a left tackle in the first round, and or a center, I should say. And then you have Tate and maybe another receiver added in the draft, along with the studs they drafted last year. And if the defense is able to keep the form up, maybe the Browns can be, just as competitive as they were this past year, and maybe finally are starting to build something in Cleveland. But out of the Bears at 25th, this is where I'm going to have EMW. It makes a ton of sense. You lose 3 safeties in Byard, CJ Gardner Johnson, and Jaquan Brisker. They brought in Kobe Bryant, but you need to add others. And McNeil Warren, who, phenomenal player at Toledo, year round puts out defensive players, and I think the Bears would love that pick. Bills at 26th. CJ Allen, who I know a lot of people might say linebacker. Is he really a first round player? But he's a Georgia linebacker. He was a captain. Like, Georgia linebackers are just known to be really good players, and a Bills team that kind of invest into all their needs in free agency can go with linebacker. Matt Milano banged up, seems like every year, and isn't the same player he was pre 2023. Yeah, pre 2023, before the injury started to come up. And CJ Allen could be the perfect player next to Milano to keep this Bills defense sound, even if Milano is injured. Niners at 27 recently got Trent Williams extended, so no need for left tackle. But I think still need a lot of positions, and I think you could go, tackle to eventually replace him. I'm gonna go receiver with Casey Concepcion. I think, yes, they brought in Mike Evans, but who else do you have? Brandon Ayuk more than likely gone post draft. Jawan Jennings seemingly soured his relationship with the team. You have Evans, Pearsall, not much else. I think getting a receiver here in the first round makes a lot of sense. And Casey Concepcion, I think, could be a phenomenal pick for this Niners team, who I think in the Kyle Shanahan offense could be great. Moving on to the Texans at 28. I went the first defensive tackle of the board, Peter Woods. They've invested into every other defensive position outside of D tackle. And I think unless they fall in love with one of these guards and, want to select one of them, I think more than likely they go D tackle and Woods, who I think, is an amazing player, and I think could turn out to be the best defensive tackle from this class, and a really loaded D tackle class with a lot of guys who have the potential, just haven't really shown it. And I think Houston would love a defensive tackle who can also get after the quarterback. You're just what a guy who can stuff the run, but also be able to affect the QB, and that's what Woods can do. Pair him with Daniel Hunter and Will Anderson on the outside. Oof, that is a scary D line. Chiefs at 29. I'm going to go with Omar Cooper Jr. I'm not as high on him as other people, but seems like he's going to be a first round pick. And Chiefs, who could go edge, like a Parker or Cassius Howe, or maybe you go tackle and you put one of them at the right tackle spot. But, you know, Xavier Worthy banged up this past year, and who knows how like great of a player for his career he will be. You know, Rasheed Rice with um also being banged up, and just another guy that's really that great. Chiefs need to invest into the receiver position, and I think Cooper could be a phenomenal pick for the Chiefs and give Mahomes kind of a safety blanket to throw to when he comes back from his injury. Dolphins at 30th. Could go with a lot of positions. Went Jordan Tyson at 11, so I'm going to go corner with Colton Hood out of Tennessee. Could go edge. Could go with offensive line to help this team out. But I think receiver and corner are the two biggest needs on this team. And with Jeff Hafley coming from the Packers, you know, last year, Hafley really wasn't able to play a lot of man to man because the corners he had were not the greatest cover guys. So I think he wants to get somebody like Hood um out there who would be able to, you know, be a one-on-one corner guy or be a man-to-man corner guy and be able to cover really well. Pats at 31st. Could go tackle, but I'm gonna go TJ Parker, who I've said for a while could end up being the bench edge rusher, which is crazy to say for a guy going this late. But remember, TJ Watt won this late, and he's arguably the best pass rusher. I think Garrett's better, but he's arguably, some people argue him. But I think Parker, you know, would be a phenomenal pick. You lose Caleb on Chason to Washington, where he only signed a 1 year deal. So I'm surprised New England couldn't have offered him that. But you can replace him getting Parker, who has the talent, just like his teammate Peter Woods. They have the talent. They just really weren't able to show it because of how bad close it was this past year. And then finally, the Seattle Seahawks at 32nd, corner Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina. That'll conclude my 2026 final mock draft, who I have every team taken. And when Seattle loses, a lot of really good players on that defense. You could go edge rusher because they lost Boye Mafe, but you lose Reek Wallen to free agency. You lost Kobe Bryant. They were able to bring back Josh Joe, but you still need to keep that secondary really good. And Cisse can join his South Carolina teammate Nicky Minwari in Seattle. So there you have it. There is my official 2026 mock draft. I think each team will go in the first round. But hope you guys enjoy the video. Hope you guys like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll catch you guys tomorrow night for my live stream of round one. But until then, hope you have a great day and bye.